Hey, what's up? All right, it is 3:07, so I think anyone who's not here yet, that's their fault. So thanks for coming. I appreciate it. I am going to do a masterclass today about basically how to generate creativity. When I was thinking about what I should make this masterclass about, I was like, oh, I could make it about drums, or I could make it about basses or synths, or like whatever. But I figured that everyone kind of like has all of those bases covered already. Like the technical stuff is no longer the problem with production. Like I remember in 2007 or 2008 or something, everybody thought like, oh, how do you make Skrillex basses? And that was kind of like the pinnacle of shit to figure out or whatever. But now it's almost like every like trick in the book you can learn for free off YouTube. So I don't think there's like much technical hurdle stuff to get over anymore. So I thought, what's like the one thing I think that I can offer that, or probably a few things, but what's like one of the main things that I think I can offer that I don't think anybody else can, or very few people can. And I thought, well, I never really get stuck, right? Like when I'm making music, I'm just like always I never have an issue with like if I want to write music to sit down and write it. It's like never a problem for me. So I guess I wanted to try and like think about what it is about what I'm doing that kind of makes me never get stuck. And I thought about it for a long time, and I think I've somewhat figured it out to some degree. And I've never tried to teach this before. To anyone really. I mean, I've talked about it a little bit in podcasts and stuff like that, but I've never like really packaged it up as a class because I've always thought it's a little bit abstract to think about like how do you teach someone to be creative, right? It's like tough. It's easier to teach someone how to use a synthesizer or how to use Ableton, but it's like a little tougher to teach somebody how to actually be creative. So the goal of this masterclass is basically to get you creating music and to stop you from getting stuck. And the idea is that after you take this masterclass, you'll be able to go into the studio, and so long as you have the drive to want to make music, you'll be able to make some. And you won't be sitting there staring at blank Ableton templates or making loops and not getting past that. So I guess the first thing I wanted to do was define what creativity is. And I think everybody has their own sort of definitions for what it is. Some people think it's the ability to think outside the box. So for instance, what would be a good example? Like, taking something in Ableton, like, that old trick that Tom Cosm had where he would like record stuff into different channels and chop it up and do that crazy hocketing technique or whatever. Like that was thinking outside the box, right? It's using Ableton in a way that it wasn't really designed to be used. And hacking Ableton to use it in like weird ways, like that's one definition of creative, right? Like taking something that was designed to do one thing and being sort of like innovative with your usage of said thing, like the application of it is interesting. I guess another way that you can define it, and this is the way that I prefer to define it, is just the ability to create, right? So I'd say this is the most accurate definition is, someone who can think outside the box or think of unintended uses for things. I would say that's imaginative, and it's, they have good imagination, but they're not necessarily creating anything with their thoughts, right? Unless they actually like sit down and create it. So for the purpose of this class, we're defining creativity as creating things, like actually making something. So creating a thing. So I guess like let's talk about the things that might stop you from being creative first, because that seems like a good place to start. And pretty much when I thought about this problem, most of what I thought about was just like these anxious thoughts that I constantly have in the studio and that I see espoused by artists a lot. So for instance, you have thoughts such as like, I'm not as good as this other artist, and therefore like, why should I bother making music or something? Which is just like a self-doubt kind of thought. Because not everybody likes that artist as much as you do, and perhaps many people would actually prefer listening to your music if you ever put it out. So that's kind of like a just self-doubt style of thinking. Another thing is you might get into the studio and say something like, I don't have enough time to write music today because I don't have enough time to get into the flow state because I have to go out in an hour to meet a friend or something, so there's no point in me starting to write music today, which is just a justification, right, for the rest of the anxieties basically. But with this one, you're just sort of like sweeping the burden of I have a good reason not to do this today under the rug. Or, you know, maybe you say something like, oh, I just don't feel like making music, and I feel like if I start, it'll just end in nothing as usual, so I won't start. You know, that way I can't fail. Which is, again, just self-doubt. And unless you try to make music, you can't really ever prove that the days that you didn't start something amazing would not have happened. Or you might think making music is too much effort and it's overwhelming, so I'll wait for a day where I feel like I have the readiness for such a task like writing music. The solution to that just being to compartmentalize your work rather than trying to think of it as this giant job, and so on and so forth. So there's like a ton of anxious thoughts that might stop you from being creative, right? So, I mean, we obviously have to deal with that stuff. And then we have to talk about, and this is like the main thing of this class, is where creativity comes from, right? So it's like a tricky question to answer, but I feel like the more questions you ask about it, the clearer the answer becomes. So one question you could ask about creativity is like, does it exist in a vacuum? Like, do you feel, and this is actually a question you can answer it in the chat if you feel like I'm actually looking at the chat. Do you feel like inspiration or creativity just comes to you when you're sitting in the studio randomly? Or do you think it happens due to some sort of external influence or some sort of environmental influence? And how can you prove that it does or it doesn't, right? Because I think nothing else exists in a vacuum except maybe being a baby, but like, you know, who hasn't experienced anything yet and is still in the womb or something. But babies are not really creating much of anything, so who gives a shit? So I don't really think that creativity comes from nowhere at random, right? I don't think anything comes from anywhere at random. So I don't think creativity can exist there. And I think if you think about it the other way, like where it does come from, there's so many sort of examples as to sort of seeing that creativity comes from external influence, right? For instance, have you heard like people say the classic thing like, oh, you should sample that sound in a song, right? I hear that said to me so much. Like somebody hears something and they go like, oh, you should sample that. And I always think the reason this person is saying this is because they heard a song or a sound and they thought it would work well in musical context. And then that sound gave them inspiration, which is in essence an event that caused them to imagine art. So it's kind of like a cause and effect thing, right? Like they heard a thing, an external influence came into their perception, and then they decided, oh, that gives me an idea. So it's like, were they creative in that moment? Or was it, you know, no, I would say not. I would say basically what happened is something external came into their perception and it caused them to have an idea. Or, I mean, another thing is, have you ever... where creativity comes from is a long conversation, but it's something we have to address, right? If we want to tackle the problem of like why we're not creative or why we have issues getting stuck sometimes. But this is all getting somewhere, I promise. So the other thing we can talk about is like if somebody shows you a song, right? Like let's say we're in the studio and I show you a song. It's pretty common, I feel like, for people to be like, oh, that gives me an idea. Or like for somebody to hear a thing and go like, oh, that reminds me of X, Y, Z thing or something. So like, you know, you get these external influences and they have this sort of causal reaction that causes you to think of another thing. Or, you know, like if you're ever collaborating with somebody in the studio, I always notice that my ideas never run dry when I'm with somebody else in the studio, because like they'll do something and that'll inspire me, and then I'll do something and that'll inspire them, and so on and so forth. And you get this kind of like cause reaction thing. Mario Gutierrez says, it's hard to say if it's in a vacuum or not. I think sometimes it really does strike me and then it comes out. See, I don't think so. I don't think like creativity just comes and strikes me without some sort of like causal event before it. But anyway, that's my theory, and that's what I'm trying to talk about. So let's see. So this kind of all points towards one thing, I think, which is creativity is caused by a chain reaction of events or outside stimulus. And it never exists in a vacuum because we never exist in a vacuum. So you can't really prove that creativity exists in a vacuum, right? Because the fact that you never do Like the fact that you are always exposed to environment and other stuff kind of proves that it never existed in a vacuum, and that you, holy shit, my cat is going nuts. Jesus Christ. So I guess to get even more existential with this, deterministic philosophers argue that everything happens to a chain reaction of events, many of which you don't have control over. And this defines how you feel about everything, including music. Creativity for you is usually like how two ripples bouncing off each other create a third ripple in another direction. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, that's actually a good way to look at it. So anyway, this is all sort of leading to my hypothesis here, which is what the whole masterclass is about. And apologies, it took me like 10 minutes to get to this point. But if we run with the assumption that creativity, so as we're defining it, the ability to create, comes from a chain reaction of events and outside stimulus, well then, if we can create outside stimulus to create said chain reaction of events, then that should result in us having unlimited creativity, right? Does that make sense? So I'll say it again. If we run with the assumption that creativity, i.e. the ability to create, comes from a chain reaction of events and outside stimulus, then if we can reliably create these things, the outside stimulus and the chain reaction of events, then we should never not have creativity. We should always have a mechanic to create or to incite creativity. So as long as everybody is with me on that point, we're good, because that's what this masterclass is about. So pretty much the rest of this class is that we're just going to think of ways to generate stimulus, pretty much. And I guess before I get there, I want to talk about like, just mechanics in life in general, right? Like I feel like I have a bunch of mechanics for different stuff. Like, I have a mechanic to not overeat, and that mechanic is, or mechanic, whatever it is, like the thing that I put in place in my life so I don't overeat is I stop eating at 8 p.m. and I don't eat again until like midday the next day, right? So I give myself a 16-hour window where I don't eat, and that allows me to deal with my overeating problem. Or, like let's say I get angry about something. I have like mechanisms in my mind to be like, all right, calm down and like think about a certain thing, maybe meditate, maybe go for a walk. Like I have these sort of options that I just put in place to sort of get around problems. And the same exists for creativity, right? I have mechanisms I've found, which I wasn't necessarily aware of them until I thought about it. But I have mechanisms to get around being uncreative, I guess is the word. And those mechanisms are stimulus generation techniques. So basically, within Ableton, if I can like reliably create stimulus that is random or not or whatever, then it can constantly incite creativity. So, how can we generate stimulus in which to incite creativity? So here's some of the techniques that I use. The first one I call musicking while musicking, which sounds pretty weird. But essentially what that is it's the idea here is you listen to music whilst writing music. And that sounds super weird to like put music on in the background whilst you're working on music, but you'd be surprised because when you're working on music with the music playing in the background, you kind of get these like weird, I don't know, like here, I'll just do it for like 5 minutes or something and show you what I'm talking about. So I'm going to put on just random stuff. Like let's say, let's put on some Morton Grinnell. Hopefully YouTube doesn't copyright strike this. But I'm just going to like play this song, right? And what I'm going to do is just write music over the top of it whilst this is playing. Is this, hold on one sec. Need to set my output correctly. Wait, why is this not working? Maybe I have to shut Spotify and reopen it. Or actually, you know what? I don't even need to use Spotify. I can just like use some music from my music folder. Let's let's put on a burial tune. Like oh, actually no, not burial. Let's put on a culprit tune. Maybe from others, like beast. This song is so crazy. So I'll just have the music playing like pretty, yeah, it's playing now. I'll just have it playing like pretty quietly in the background. So the idea is like, I'll pretty much just create a bunch of random shit, right? Like over the top of a thing. And it's just all sort of like somehow semi-related to that thing. And then I'll just have a bunch of stuff to work with, you know, like just a bunch of stuff that was jammed over the top of something that's just sort of useful now to start something with. So, I mean, let's try and start something out of this just to prove that it could be the start of a song. And then from here we can, I mean, just keep working on this through the masterclass and eventually maybe have something at the end of it to prove that this works. All right, so let's just listen to this and just clean the beat up a bit. So did I already quantize this? I did, right? All right, so I think this needs to go here. All right, that's somewhat of a beat, I guess. So let's quantize this to 16th notes. This is a little out of time. So like that's a pretty cool beat, to be honest. It's like pretty syncopated. Let's just copy these hats over here. So like that beat, I don't think I would have written otherwise, you know? So where did that creativity come from to make that beat? It didn't really come from me. It didn't really come from Culprit either, because neither of us wrote it, or neither of us, like he didn't write it. Technically, I don't feel like I really wrote it either. It's just kind of like something that came from outside stimulus, right? So now what do we got here? All right, so we got a bit of a harmony here. Let's just copy these over here. Oh, what's this stuff here? I'm just going to copy these harmony notes to the start of each bar. Oh, that sounds weird. Let's just keep copying this beat for the moment. Alright, so we got that, and then what's this? Oh, this is Imperial March. Oh, it literally is Imperial March, what the fuck. Alright, so let's copy all these bass notes over to here instead of using the ones that we had there, because they sound pretty bad. And then let's just take the low notes here, the fundamentals. And then what's this? So we're starting to get somewhere with like some form of melody and harmony. I mean, obviously it sounds like garbage, right? Like it's just, but all that can, you know, you can sit there and fuck a snare and kick drum for weeks on end if you like. But, you know, you first need an idea, otherwise you're going to get stuck. So I feel like this third chord could be different now. And again, like this feeling that I feel like the third chord should be different wouldn't have come unless I made it wrong in the first place, you know? I feel like the bass note should go like that. And then let's cut the end of this note off. Cool. So I mean, we have like some form of idea there now, right? Um, so that's the kind of first technique, is musicking whilst musicking. And I feel like this is pretty fun. You kind of just have this like constant stream of another artist's idea coming into your perception whilst you write music. And I feel like it can achieve some pretty cool results. And surprisingly, the times that I've done this, the music I end up making is never really like the tunes that I was listening to when making it. And this usually ends up getting me into the flow state pretty quick, where I pretty quickly just turn the music off like I just did there and just start going down the rabbit hole with this idea that I just started, right? Like I could very easily now just like keep working on this until it sounded like a cool tune, I think. So that's idea one, is musicking whilst musicking. And musicking is just like a term that was coined by, who was it coined by? Let me have a look real quick. Musicking. It was coined by Christopher G. Small, and it's any activity involving or related to music performance, such as performing, listening, rehearsing, or composing. So you're listening whilst composing, so it's musicking whilst musicking. So obviously these drums are terrible, and you know, these basses are horrible and whatnot, but you know, you can always do sound design sessions later. All right, so the next thing is computers as collaborators. So I think computers are really good at spitting out just random melodic and rhythmic nonsense. There's a lot of like weird probability based devices these days. Hey, what's up YouTube? You probably should go away right now though. And these are just a great place to start developing musical ideas if you don't have any, because you can just generate a bunch of random stuff, and then sometimes that can give you an idea, right? So quite often I'll just sit down with the intention of learning how one of these devices works by just browsing through YouTube tutorials and whatnot. And usually once I start playing with it and get it spitting out some random ideas that are giving me, it's giving me like pretty cool ideas before I, like as soon as I start spitting randomness out, it just starts giving me cool ideas. For instance, the intro to this track of mine called Sisyphus, which sounds like this, is just completely random, this motif at the start. That it's just some like random shit that my modular did. And then that gave me the idea for the piano. So I think getting that kind of like randomness out of things can be interesting. So one cool way to do that is using Ableton's or Sonic Faction's probability pack if you just have Max for Live. So if you go into Max MIDI effects, you have these like random devices that can just do crazy stuff, like this melodic, this melodic probability, I think, is the one that does random stuff. So just like you can spit out just completely random stuff here. The one that I like is called Steps or something like that. What is it? Is it an instrument maybe? Let me just go to my packs. Probability step divider, I think, is the one. It's like the red one. Yeah, this one. Okay, cool. So so this one's pretty interesting. You can create these like sequences, and you have eight, what would you call it, like layers of this step sequencer. And let's feed this into a drum rack. And I'm just gonna randomly click through all of these like this and then play it. So you can see here now, as I play through this, you can see the yellow play buttons lighting up in the drum rack. So I'm just going to throw some random samples in there. So I just have like a bunch of random stuff from Belegal Sounds, for instance. So let's just go into like some synth sounds and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and just throw these all in here. And now if we just play this. So the problem is they're sort of playing over the top of one another. So we need to put them all on the same choke channel. So you do this, choke 1. Now they're on the same choke channel, only one of these will play at a time. So that's pretty cool. And now what we can do is we can put another layer of sounds, like another 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We can put these an octave higher, so up here, and just add all of these to the same choke channel also, like this. And now if we turn the probability up over here where it says octave, we turn this second one up, now it will have like a 50-50 chance of playing either a sample from the first layer, like this first one here now has a 50-50 chance of playing this sample or this sample. So the first sample of the 2 sets of 8, so you get this. So that's getting pretty random. So you can do this a few more times. So let's do it a few more times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's jam these up here. So we need 3 more here. Let's go to the Acceptor Chroma pack, which is pretty cool. Melodic one-shots. Like, get 3 of these. Put them there. And then we'll add this third octave of probability. And we'll do that again, maybe like 1 or 2 more times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 samples. Chuck this here. Then let's do this one more time. So we need 7 more samples. Oh, let's go to the bad computer pack. This one's really good. Let's go melodic. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Do this. All right, and now again put them all on the same choke channel and turn these up. And we can turn the rate up if we want it to go faster. So this step divider, it's actually free. Mario is asking about it. If we go, just type in Ableton probability pack, and it'll be the first thing that shows up in Google, and it's on their website and it's free. And if you just hit download and install it and you have Max for Live installed, you'll get it, along with like 4 other Max devices or something. And they all do random stuff like this. And this stuff I think is like really, really good for generating creativity. All right, so we can set the rate to be like whatever we want. We can set the divisions to be whatever we want. So check this out. You can set the divisions of like this sequence to be different to the divisions of every other sequence. So you can break this one into say like 16 steps. You can break them up into a bunch of random stuff really if you wanted to just like mess around with it a bunch and make it all wacky. You can also hit a random button here somewhere. I can't remember exactly where it is. Is it this? Yeah, this one. Just does a bunch of random shit. So I actually like just keeping the divisions usually normal, but then just hitting random a bunch of times like this. And if you get a pattern that you like, you can hold shift and just click somewhere in this pattern group and just save it. So then if we randomize another one, you can save that now and then randomize, save again. Like you can just save a bunch of them, right? Like this. And now this is where you can start to get really random. Let's do like 10 of these, I guess, or something like that. So now once you've saved all these to this pattern generator, you can turn the sequencer on and set the rate to like, I don't know, quarter notes or something, and then set this direction thing to like to sequence through these patterns, and when you play it you'll just start getting these sort of random patterns playing back. So now if we want to make this sound, you know, more legitimate in this tune, we can figure out what this is. This is an F. So the track is in F. So we just need to get all of these samples in F. So a lot of them probably already are close to that. So this is in D. So we just need to go E, F, A. It's probably going to take me like way longer than I would want to spend. So maybe I can just go find a bunch of samples in F minor instead, and that'll be way faster. So let's just delete all these for the moment and just go pick a bunch of stuff in F minor so I don't have to think about this too hard and waste a bunch of time. Literally anything that's in F minor, I'll just throw it in. All right, cool. So now let's chuck all these on the same choke channel. All right, so we should get this now. Sounds pretty cool. So let's see what this sounds like over the top of this. Well, you know what we should do? We should just like render a bunch of it, right? So we could just record a bunch of this. Cool, so there's a few sections in there that I thought were pretty interesting and gave me some ideas. And this is an example of how the computer can be a collaborator, right? It's like I didn't really make that. I just sort of set up the parameters under which that it happened. And now I have like some stuff to get some ideas from. Like that little thing there is pretty interesting. That is interesting. That's pretty interesting. So is that. And so is that. I'm just sort of cutting all the bits out that I thought might be that I think might be good for making music out of. And this will probably be different for everybody. All right, so that's like some cool stuff, right? So now what can we do with this musically? Well, let's listen to what we had before. So we have like some sort of melodic idea there. And then over here we have like more sort of effects and beat ideas. So let's see what happens if we like loop some of these. So I think this one here could be pretty interesting looped. So let's loop this like 3 or 4 times. Yes, that's a pretty cool loop. Let's get rid of this. Cool. So now let's take that loop and layer it instead of these drums over the top of this this bass and stuff. Cool, so that's trick number 2, using the computer as a collaborator. All right, trick number 3 is online collaborators. So this is kind of an interesting one. So these don't necessarily have to be people that you're collaborating with per se, like on a Ableton project or whatever. But usually what I like to do sometimes is stream on Twitch, and there'll be a chat full of people, kind of like there is right now. And they'll be sort of like backseat producing, right? Which I think is great, because I find it usually causes me to try things that I wouldn't have thought to try if they hadn't have typed X, Y, Z things in the chat. And also quite often the person who types the idea in the chat tells me that I've executed a completely different idea than they were trying to explain to me, which kind of proves that creativity is just created from output stimulus. From somebody saying one thing, I was provoked to do like a completely different thing. So then you have to ask the question, like, who created the idea there, right? I don't feel like I did. I feel like they told me an idea to create and I did it, but they also didn't, right? Because they told me an idea and I did a different thing than what they were talking about. So it's kind of, I feel like it's weird. It's like nobody really created the idea. It's like I was just sort of a conduit for a thing that they said, and it's kind of, you can think about it a lot. But yeah, I think streaming on Twitch is pretty cool, or just like YouTube. Hey, damn, my cat is being crazy right now. Or like, yeah, sitting in Discord, like in a chat full of people just like chatting, you can tell them to just like type in musical ideas whilst you chat or something, whilst you write or something, and just like look at what they're typing, and that can sometimes give you ideas. Or you can call a friend who works on music or not, on like Discord or Skype or whatever, and just ask them to talk to you while you write music. And I find it's pretty fun to do that, even if somebody is completely non-musically inclined. I feel like they'll say pretty interesting things for what they want to happen, and the stuff that they usually say kind of like perks up ideas for me that weren't usually there, but like that I wouldn't have gotten any other way, right? So that is idea number 3. It's kind of hard to demonstrate that one because I'm obviously already streaming for this masterclass thing. I can't really just stream again on Twitch and do that, but that's the idea. The 4th idea is doing sound design sessions. So we kind of just did that. Like, this is sort of a sound design session, but what I usually find is when I'm doing sound design sessions, more often than not, I'll sort of just start making a tune out of the sounds that I'm making. Luke McAnally says, have I thought about making a text channel in my Discord for this? No, I haven't. Well, look, I mean, kind of. Like, my Discord is sort of just like that anyway. People are always talking about production in there. I mean, so my whole Discord is sort of like that. But yeah, sound design I usually find is pretty cool for getting inspired, you know, like especially if I'm playing with a new synth. Like recently I've been playing with Vital a lot, and quite often if I'm playing with it a bit, I'll just start to come up with an idea. So you know, let's just start messing around with this synth. So maybe I'll start with some weird waveform, like this one. Oh, this has text to speech too, so you can like right click and say text to wavetable, and I'll just type like creativity. Okay.
Creativity.
Creativity.
What I would call a sound design session is kind of just like sitting around making sounds, like whether that be drums or basses or whatever. It's like where, you know, whether you don't really have the goal to make music, you kind of just have the goal to just sit around and mess around with a synth.
Creativity. Creativity. Creativity.
All right, let's FM one to the other. This is pretty cool. Let's do some LFO stuff to this. So I'm like not really trying to make music right now. I'm just trying to make a sound, and eventually this will probably give me an idea to go like, oh, that would be cool in this. Or actually, you know what I've been enjoying doing the most in Vital is this kind of stuff. Just get a, you know, like a saw wave, just any simple waveform. Hold on one sec. Get down here. And then applying, I'm just going to initialize this preset. All right, so attaching an LFO to the pitch, so you get something like this. Let's enter a value of like 50. So you get this, you know, just pitch up, pitch down type thing. Why is that so weird sounding? Yeah, there we go. So we like just have one octave of pitch. But then if you go into this transpose snap thing, you can select notes for this to only hit. So it'll never hit like any of these other notes now. It'll just hit this first one. So it should just snap between the octave. Yeah, so you can hear it's just like snapping between 3 octaves. And then if I add this note here, we get this. And let's add another one. So I find that to be really fun. And usually what I'll do with this is I'll just slow the LFO right down to like 16.1 or something like that. And just use the brush and just start drawing like harmonies in and stuff. Like, all right, let's make it a bit faster, like 8. Maybe even quicker. And then let's do the same thing here with this oscillator. So I'm going to again attach a different LFO to it this time so I can create a harmony. I'm also going to make it quarter note. Just going to draw a few like random parts in. and then just mess with the transpose snap to try and get it sounding right. And let's pitch this down. Sounds okay. I'm going to speed these up a little bit just so I can kind of hear what's going on a bit quicker. Cool. And let's do this on a third oscillator, I guess. Just chuck a couple of these on, do the same sort of thing. So what are we at now? 1, 1. Let's put it back on 1, 1. Alright, let's slow these these LFOs down to 1 bar again. I think it's 1 bar. Sounds pretty cool. What if we just loop this over the top of this now? These hi-hats in this kit actually are pretty decent. We could just loop those like this. Cool, so that's like another potential idea for making interesting stuff happen, or generating creativity, is doing sound design, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh cool, I have a new thing that I didn't have before. So that is another thing there. Another thing I like to do is try and dig artifacts out of stuff. So this idea is basically that I think all music kind of has unheard music buried inside of it. And, you know, obviously thanks to the power of Ableton and other DAWs and stuff, we can find a lot of that unheard music within the music via spectral processing and stretching, stuff like that. So sometimes I like to pull a song, into Ableton, let's say Beast again, and just like stretch the absolute like shit out of it. So let's do it through pole stretch, because I think pole stretch is a little nicer. Do I have pole stretch installed? I may not even have it installed right now. Whoops. That is annoying. Wait, I do have it installed. What the hell? Alright. So let's put Beast, or before I do this, maybe I'll just like cut a little bit of it out so we're not taking the whole track. Maybe, whoops. Maybe we'll just take like this amount. So let's just take these bells and let's drag them into pole stretch. It might not accept it actually, hold on. I may have to render this, so let's just render this to the desktop real quick, like true producers. And then let's drag this into pole stretch. Okay, so first of all, I want to have this on play when the host plays, so it doesn't play otherwise. I'm playing Ableton. And now, FFT size can be 1, but the stretch amount I want to be like, I don't know, like 8. So it's going to be stretched by 8 times now. Well, let's even stretch it by more. Let's stretch it by like 16 times. And turn the FFT down to like 0.5 or something like that. And I'm just going to render this. This might take a minute or 3. Yeah, you get these really lush things coming out of it. Let's go back to the samples here. Recorded. Wait, I think it's just processed, right? Where's the... Yeah, here we go. Let's render this again. but let's just render the bell parts so we can just do this a little faster. So I'm just going to render these one by one. So let's just name this one like 2 and just name this one 3. And then run these also through pole stretch. So first let's put 2. No, I'm not running a piece through pole stretch a second time. I'm just running like the last bell pieces through it because I didn't want to wait for the next bell thing to happen. It would have taken like 5 minutes. Yeah, so we're kind of getting these like new musical ideas out of it, you know, that didn't exist there before. Let's stretch it by less and mess with the FFT size. Well, let's turn this on. Let's put a different sound in there. Oh yeah, I did send the link to the YouTube chat. Did it not come? I just sent it again. Hopefully it comes. It's just type in xenakios.wordpress.com/pole stretch. Xenakio is spelled XENAKIOS .wordpress.com/pole stretch. Yeah. Anyway, so I feel like we've kind of undug a musical idea here that wasn't intended. Like even if we just use that hit, that's such a nice stab right there. So what if we pitch this up again by a couple of octaves? Kind of gets back to its original pitch, but not the original tempo. So let's do that, but then pitch it back down. Let's try and build a beat out of these glitch things, maybe. So I feel like we need a clap of some sort. Let's get a good clap. Where are the wax claps? Yeah, wax layered. That sounds pretty cool. Crispy might be the move, to be honest. Whoops, I did the claps wrong. My bad. Let's consolidate these and have them fade out. Oh, that's pretty cool. Might be cooler if they're the other way around, though, like reversed, like this. And let's just, for the moment, I guess, duplicate this. Cool. So I guess that's like another idea, is to stretch things out and try and find different musical ideas in them that way. And that can sort of generate some ideas. Another thing I like to do is what I call collaging. And this is kind of a controversial thing to do because it could be misconstrued, I suppose, as like, what would you say, stealing, I suppose, to some degree. But I don't think it is. So I'll show you what it is anyway. And it's literally just to like generate a creative idea. It's not to like, you know, steal anything. So what I'm going to do is load in a couple of tracks that I like. So let's load in this. Let's load in a Dirt Monkey track. Something like that. Let's load in a DMVU track. Let's load in a Jade Cicada track. And let's load in a Kendrick Lamar track maybe. Let's see. And maybe one more, say like a lawn track. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is find the drop of each of these tracks, if they have one. So I think that's the drop for this one. And I'm going to warp them all to the BPM of the session. So I'm just going to move this around until it looks correct. And this is 70 BPM, or probably 140 is better. Let's just make sure by turning the metronome on. Cool. All right, so I warped this to 140. We're done with that one. Let's go on to the next one. You know what? Instead of this, I'm going to get a different Dirt Monkey track because I know he has a bunch of stuff at 140. So this is probably going to work better if we get something at 140. Bananas. There we go. Oh yeah, this is a good one. All right, so let's grab this. Wait, I didn't warp that. Oh, it's not quite 140, it's maybe 150. Yep, 150. All right, what's this? Let's warp this one. This one might be 140. Yep, that's 140. I've got like a couple more to do here. This needs to be, is that 140? No, it's not, is it? Damn, what tempo is this track? Oh, it's way faster. It's like 172. Alright, so we warped that one. Just 2 more to go.
Sex.
So what is this, like 100? No, more like 108. Sick. Alright, and then this last one. We probably don't need the last one, screw it. Alright, so now what I want to do is get all of these in the same key. So we're in F for the track. So what I usually do is just go to like Musica Piano, just hit an F. And then try and get all these in key by just using the transpose control. So we're just going to set the session to like whatever, 140. Okay, so that's correct. Gonna put all these on Pro. All right, that's close enough. So now what I'll do is just sort of like cut chunks out of it to try and like generate a new song basically. So you get this kind of thing. So let's take these tracks, create a new audio track here, and then just cut parts of these out to make a new sort of thing up here. So I usually like to do this in, I don't know, quarter note segments or like half bar segments or something like that. And I just sort of randomly cut bits out to see if I can just create some sort of idea that didn't exist before. And try and get an idea that way, you know? So this sounds a bit weird because it doesn't land on a snare. Maybe we should use this one. Cool, so that's a pretty cool loop. And it's really none of the songs, right? It's kind of like a new thing. So let me try and just build that real quick out of like splice samples. Or I mean, you can use any sample really. Like I'm just like, I would usually make all the sounds, but we don't have time. So let's just start picking random shit and see how we go. Drums. Kick. So we kind of like know what we need to build now because all the drums are there and everything. So where's that hi-hat? Whoops. What the did I just whoops. So there's like a bongo thing. Let's create a simpler. And for this, like, this thing here, we'll just get like a 16th note, like digga 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 digga. The way I warped everything to time was changing the session till I found the tempo and then clicking warp. Yeah, that's correct. I should do a video about that one day. It seems like a lot of people always give me some questions about that. All right, let's pitch this down. All right, now let's just take some basses, if we can find some that are similar. All right. It's pretty brutal sounding bass, but I like it, it's good. We need a wub. Let's go to my Spectra sample pack and get a wub. I need a better wub. Oh man, why are wubs so hard to find? I'm just going to go through, I'll just pick one of these, I guess. Spectra. Cool, that works, fuck it. Alright, so now we just made a beat in like a couple of minutes out of collaging like 3 or 4 other beats, right? So and I mean, you can obviously sit there and produce that all day until it sounds like a good beat. So that's another way I like to generate some ideas is just collage a couple of beats together in that way, and then try and rebuild the beat that you collaged, just however you want to rebuild it. You can make every sound from scratch if you like, doesn't matter. And then, yeah, you have a beat. And the final stimulus generation idea I have is the Beethoven challenge, which is pretty memey and like people sort of already kind of know about this one, but the idea is you just turn your speakers off completely and then you just write without listening at all. So, you know, I might create like a MIDI channel here and just without even listening, just sort of like try to make some sort of melody or whatever. And sometimes I find doing this for like 30 minutes, maybe while on a phone call or something like that, can sometimes create some pretty interesting ideas. Yeah, so sometimes I'll just sort of sit around just fucking around with shit like this. Maybe try and make like some chord progression this way or something. And the idea is like just never listen to it, like never. That's why I turn my speakers off, because I'm so tempted to hit spacebar right now just out of like habit. But you don't want to hit spacebar, you want to keep it off until the very end. And I won't like bore you too long with this, I'll just make something real quick, just see what happens. And quite often, like, it's funny because you just end up doing stuff visually. Like, you don't do stuff that like looks or that sounds good or whatever, right? You just sort of do stuff that looks interesting. Just like randomly cutting bits and pieces in here. This is gonna sound so bad, but you know, sometimes like you'll do something, it'll be terrible, but you know, it generates some kind of interesting idea that gives you an idea to make something that's maybe not so terrible. Just copy these over. Yeah, it's pretty interesting just making music completely visually, just without any regard for what it sounds like, and then just seeing what it sounds like later. Maybe let's just copy this stuff over too. But yeah, anyway, I mean, let's have a listen to this. It probably sounds horrible. Yeah, it sounds so bad. But anyway, that's another idea. So just to recap, because we're getting towards the end of this thing now. To recap, I think that creativity can be reliably sourced through mechanisms to generate stimulus like this that can make you think of ideas or like help sort of jolt your creative inner muse, I guess, whatever you want to call it. And to sort of go through the ideas again, there's musicking while musicking. So that's writing music over the top of other music. There's using the computer as a collaborator. So that's kind of like using random generators and stuff like that to sort of give you input that's a little bit random to generate ideas that way. The third is using online collaborators through like Twitch chats or Discord or calling a friend or something like that. The fourth is do sound design sessions. So when you do sound design sessions, sometimes that inspires you to create a song out of the sounds that you've made. The fifth is stretch things, because sometimes you can find melodies in there that you wouldn't have found otherwise, or use spectral processing, and you don't always have to stretch them longer. You can also stretch stuff faster as well. The sixth is collaging, which is taking a bunch of other tracks that you like or don't like, doesn't really matter, warping them all, cutting them all up into a new track, and then trying to rebuild the beat over the top of it. And then the seventh one is the Beethoven challenge, where you just write music with your speakers off and see what happens. So anyway, that's the masterclass. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully it gave you some ideas, and hopefully you don't get stuck on music anymore. Because I feel like with these tools, to be honest, so long as you have the drive to want to make music, like you're not being lazy, I feel like you can. Like I really don't think there's any reason that you can't like jolt an idea out of your brain by using these techniques. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. Hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to put this stream on MrBillsTunes.com. Whoops, this is my Bandcamp. So this is my website. It'll be on here somewhere. There's Ableton courses here, project files, sample packs. There's like all sorts of stuff on this website. It's like pretty comprehensive. So yeah, tons and tons of sample packs on this website, tons of project files, lots of courses with episodes that go for like 20 hours. All my live streams from Twitch from years. So there's like thousands of hours of live streams here. It's a ton. All my podcasts are here. Everything is here. If you want to go support me, this is the coolest place to do it, is MrBillsTunes.com. So yeah, once again, thanks for coming. I appreciate it. Thanks to Pitch for having me and hosting this and putting it all together and doing all the marketing and all that stuff. That was really cool. And yeah, have a good day, and hopefully this helped. And if you want to watch it again, it'll be up